Alright, my little goo babies. My name's Andrew. I'm a big old artist. I'm a researcher. I'm a botanist, a crazy herbalist, whatever. Mr. Kundalini worldwide. And welcome to week 2, lesson 2 of how to be your own botanical pharmacy, foraging, and just generally saying fuck it to capitalism and, Western pharmaceuticals. Anyway, you're probably asking, Andrew, why are your clothes slowly coming off, and why do you look like a Disney millennial aunt at a barbecue? Well, as my content has started to grow, I talk a lot about, some topics that are, I don't know how to phrase this in a nice way. New Age stuff tends to be the gateway to white supremacy. And, a lot of people that believe in alternative facts also think outside of the box as far as this kind of stuff is concerned, right? Like they don't trust the pharmaceutical industrial complex, which, that's fair. I would agree with them on at least that. So they've been adding me, and, I don't want to ever dissuade anybody from learning or, being better, being a better human, being a smarter human, and, maybe learning and opening up your mind a little bit. So what's out there and what, are our people. I really like I'm a normal person, relatively, I think, somewhat well adjusted. And so yeah, I want to make it very clear, this is who I am, and I'm not ashamed of it. And if you want to learn from me, the price is you have to have an open heart and you have to support my community. And if you feel like supporting me and tipping me existence money, please feel free to do so. It's getting difficult to keep the lights on, so can Cash App, Venmo. I'm on all platforms across Take Me to the Dumpster, so you can find me on TikTok. My Spotify is going to start back up. I'm on YouTube, Patreon. So yeah, come check it out. So today, we're going to talk about Soxhlets. Soxhlets! I was thinking of the SpongeBob episode with the chocolate bars. But we're going to talk about like super fancy chemistry extractions that you see in labs, or like you'll see when you walk into a dispensary and you'll see like a stock photo of a science lady staring oddly at a test tube. Soxhlet extractions are kind of a catch-all term for people that are not super into organic chemistry for, glass apparatuses that extract plant chemicals via solvents, right? Usually using a distillation method. So, you have something that pumps in either cool water, or you have some kind of circulation system that keeps it cool, and then the condensed, stuff from the plant matter floats up through the solvent into the steam. The steam comes back down and collects into your sample container, right? And there's a bunch of different types that are kind of like the Soxhlet. Soxhlet is just, again, it's the most popular. But, there's been a ton of crazy botanists before me that have created all sorts of crazy shit to extract plants. And so one thing I always want to preface on this too is when it comes to doing your own science, I think a lot of it has been so formalized and kept behind a paywall, even with the language, like the things you have to learn just to be somewhat capable in this. And I try to translate that well. But, you have this picture that you need like a full lab, or you need to go to Amazon, or you need to buy an entire like Soxhlet kit, or, do an apparatus. Oh no, you don't. So I'm going to teach you, let's teach you how to fish. Let's do the engineering part of it. My biological mother, because I'm adopted, was the crazy Indian shaman part of me. And then, my bio dad is, he worked for Honeywell. So, engineering. So, how do we do this? How do we engineer shit? How do we think about it in a way where we can picture it, piece it together, make it effective? You have to know, again, just basic concepts of things. So, when we're talking about a Soxhlet is normally a boiling plate, so it's low temperature, right? So I have my double boiler. How they normally do is they have like a rock heat pad, and they'll put like a flask in, or a minor flask, or a round flask in there. And then you're gonna put, the plant matter in that with your solvent. And then on top of that, you have something called a thimble. And inside that thimble is gonna be your plant matter. And around it, you have something called a siphon. So the siphon takes the solvent up, puts it into the plant matter, and then siphons it back down through this little like loopy system. And the idea is the thimble stays kind of above the solvent in both chambers, but there's that circulating thing where it comes up, comes back down, comes back in. And at the end of the day, when you're done, because it takes hours to run these, I don't know why, but it takes hours apparently. You take that sample with a thimble, and normally they'll do it on special types of paper, right? Like I use coffee filters, but you can use like specific color test strips, and you can use different kind of chemicals to test what's there for what's, and we're officially at like the crazy scientist level. Like you guys are moving into the advanced part of how to do this, and what you would be considered maybe in your junior year of college. So this is some cool stuff, and once you realize how easy it is to do with just shit that I bought at Goodwill for under $10, you can take off. It doesn't have to be formal. Experiment, record your results, make sure that you keep a diary and a journal, and you label everything with everything you did on it, and have fun and test it and see how it works. The joy of this is you get to make your own discoveries, and it's really not that hard. You don't have to be Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton or Nikola Tesla to do some really cool shit in your life with just the basics. Just the basics. It's very easy. All right, so Soxhlet, right? We got the thin, we got the siphon. The most important thing to these kinds of systems is your condenser, right? So we were talking about how it's distillation. A condenser is what takes the steam with the solvent in the plant stuff up through, and then this is where the cooling part comes in. So it'll take the cold water that you're pumping. You can see that has two little pieces to it, right? And that's technically where you would put tubing. And you can get tubing really cheap at aquarium places. Like I got this at Petco for my Kratky thing when I was doing hydroponics, which is what this black thing is. I plan on refilling that with wild herbs to do more sustainable foraging. Because side note, and I'll do again a whole other thing on this for wild foraging, pulling any kind of plants out of the ground here apparently it's highly illegal if you're anywhere public. You have to pay a $35 licensing fee annually, which, hey, not that bad. But then you have to pay $7 per plant. If you have to photograph it, you have to weigh it, you have to send in pictures and verify and document it, and then make your payment. And then if it's on a list of like protected species that are native, which is like everything that anybody would use, right? So like tobacco or sage or even things like globe mallow, which is our beautiful fuzzy plants that go out and they have these bright orange red flowers that spread. Like that's a protected species, and I understand the thing behind it. When we're talking conservation, I don't necessarily agree with current conservation methods. I think this is sound crazy, like controversial take. You know how you guys you're told that your carbon footprint matters, and you not eating meat will save the planet while fracking is happening behind you. Like less meat eating, less fracking destroying the earth. I just think it puts a lot of onus back on you. Like I'll give you a good example. I was listening to NPR, and there was a gentleman talking about his son and his obsession with water conservation in California, to the point where he was having panic attacks and he was neurotic about it. Like he was giving his son a bath, and all you could think about was the waste of the water from his son. So they like figured out how to use a gray water system, which kudos on them. Everybody should be like that. Like be more self-sustainable. The only way we have to get out of this capitalist hellscape is to be less dependent on the people that take this from us and oppress us. So he's freaking out about the water, and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, my fucking former governor, big old stinky Doug Deuce, sold a ton of our land to the Saudis to grow alfalfa, very water intensive crop, to feed their cattle. So they grow it here because their water is all shitty over there in the desert, and then they ship it back there because somehow, again, capitalism, as long as you have really shitty places to exploit cheaply, it's cheaper to exploit them and then move it than it is just to fucking do it yourself here. So yeah, like how much of that is on us and how much of that is on government mismanagement, corruption, and everything else that they do that has destroyed the planet. We're on day 39 of a heat wave. Day 39. Like I got my blood work back and my kidneys, not happy. Like I was worried about it for a second until I went over my historical charts, and the same time last year I was at a 73 instead of a 63. And I was like, shit, it's that time of the year, and I'm just a dumb bitch about drinking water. Like, even being out, like, in fucking 113, 114 degree weather, I'm still a dumb bitch about water. So, I gotta be less of a dumb bitch about water. Anyway, so protect your kidneys, take kidney supplements, make your own fucking kidney supplements, stay hydrated, watch your electrolyte balances, your salt intake. Because, heat's real, and heat fucks up not just, your nervous system and heat stroke and stuff, but it does slow damage to your kidneys and your liver and your circulatory system via the cholesterol fuck up that causes in your hearts, right? So everything, it's all interconnected. Drink fucking water. Anyway, back to the Soxhlet thing. So you have the water cooling system. Ooh, almost lit my shit on fire. Ooh, spicy. Back to the Soxhlet thing. So you have the cooling water come in, brings the stuff down, brings it back into the thimble. So the way that I first set this up is I went to Goodwill. I got a brewing kit, and if you've ever seen one of these before, it normally has a cap on it. And this is what you put on top of your little jugs that you put your like mash in when you're brewing alcohol, which I have also done, and it's very fun. I'm just, sober. I am a year and a half sober, and I have lost 50 pounds. I'm so excited. My maximum, I was like 278 coming out of that. I was dating a dude at like 275, and I'm like, shit, I'm almost back to like my 25-year-old beefcake weight. I'm excited. Guys, get a pole. Do your chakra work. Do some yoga on your pole. It's good for you. So I got a brewing kit. And, when you see the inside of this, right, initially the bottom is supposed to take what is fermenting, right? So the gaseous expulsions of your fermenting brew mash, and it lets it out safely from the jug. It burps the jug. And when I was looking at this, I was like, shit, well, if we're thinking about a Soxhlet, right, this has the ability to let steam up to the top. You slap a lid on the sucker with a hole in it, which I had, and, came with a hole. And then you stick the original product in here around the edges, right? And this creates your thimble. And it worked. It was great. So the way that I had that set up specifically is I went to Goodwill, and you can just buy weird fucking glass and try it. Like the last one I break these all the time, which is why I go to Goodwill and I get them for like $2. But the last one I had that was really cool had a big like indent in the bottom here that went up, and it was perfect, right? Because it had the plant matter on the bottom. It had my water, like whatever you guys want to use. I just don't like using synthetic solvents. I just think they're bad for you. Like you can use alcohol. Alcohol is an excellent solvent, but I wouldn't go for like butane or chromo. It's just I don't know. I wouldn't do it. It's up to you. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous to use those kinds of solvents if you don't know what you're doing, because you have to get rid of them once you're done with this, and that's a lot of like evaporation, which you need like a hood for, and you have to do it in a safe area. And another PSA for safety, I am poor now. I had been poor before. I will probably be poor again. But I used to live out in East Mesa, off of Alma School in Broadway, and I had some chodes next to me that were making cannabis wax. Well, it was legal, by the way. Like they didn't have to have it. They didn't have to get a card. You could just go buy it. They were making butane wax, and I was sitting on the porch with my neighbor, and they blew the house up right underneath us while I was on the patio. So the window blew out, a giant fireball. I ran downstairs, got the dogs, whatever, and I watched a small, bald 25-year-old, 26-year-old man jump headfirst out of a glass window. Just blood everywhere. So just don't do it. Be courteous to the people around you, unless you're in a professional environment or you feel really confident in this. Like, that's not even something that I'll fuck with. Like, and I have OCHEM experience, and I've done a lot of lab work, and I've done a lot of that kind of stuff. So, just a PSA. Can't drive that home enough. Don't fuck around with hydrocarbons and things that'll kill you. Natural. Anyway, so when we're putting this together, you have the thimble, and how I put it together is I have a sheet of glass, put it on top here, put my sample around this little thingy right there, and then masking tape. Super easy to use, painter's tape. It's this stuff. Just make sure that you don't put it in an area that is directly accessible to the boiling heat. Like don't stick a tape end in here. Because the heat's going to pull down what's in the tape into the stuff. So you just got to be careful with that. You can also get, I think they have medical grade tape. Like silicone tape that you can use. It's chemistry approved. I'm just broke. Again, this is end of the world shit. Like all of my favorite prompts on ChatGPT that I've ever done are like, I'm a botanist at the end of the world and I need to make a fucking kidney supplement out of household items and local plants to the Sonoran Desert. Like, write me a guide on how to do that. And it will. Sometimes you have to argue with it a little bit. So yeah, filled it up, put the little lid on top of it. When I got this thing, because I actually went to Amazon, I had no idea what to use for this. I was like, this is something you have to buy. I got it for $9, and I just put it on top like that, and then I taped it. So you got to make sure that, again, when you're looking through these, this point is hollow. right? So it goes in one end, goes out the other. This is the tube that the steam goes down. These are the tubes that the water go in. So just be conscientious of how the flow, the circulation of that system works, right? Like you can do it like this, but you want to make sure there's space, right? This is not completely tight. There's space still for the steam to come out of the hole and into here. That's why the lid is probably needed. Or, you can do it this way. Right, turn it upside down. And you'll see that it actually still balances. All right, there's a little bit of space at the very top there. It doesn't allow it to fully close, right? Actually, this is the better way to do it. So you put it like this, right? And then you put a little bit of tape. Like, that's already pretty tight. A lot of this stuff just ends up fitting perfectly. I don't know if it's my autism and pattern recognition, or if it's Mr. Kundalinis worldwide. Kundalinis. Just a teenage dirtbag. Oh, I'm old. Anyway, I haven't been fed up for a minute. I love doing these when I'm fed up for a minute. Anyway, so you got this. This is essentially a perfect Soxhlet system, right? You would attach the aquarium tubing, and a little bit, and then you get a little ice bucket. Like this is just ice water. The ice is kind of melted because it's by my double boiler. But you just add more ice, and you can add salt to it too, to keep the ice cool. Like if you've ever made ice cream, right? They put the salt part of the ice. Just make sure you put like a pretty good ratio of ice to water. Like you can't just do all ice, otherwise it won't work. Por favor, una mas. And speaking of ice, I must get. Alright, so refreshments with ice. Darn it, so much stuff. Anyway, so this is from Goodwill. The little thingy, this is from Goodwill. It's from brewing kits. This is I think this used to be an oil thing, and I kind of chipped the top off on accident because it was real small and it was real good for like filtering things. So I think it was on. I broke it off, and it actually might be a happy accident because the aquarium tubing didn't fit before, so I had to tape it, and now I'm pretty sure it fits. Let's take a dandy. I might need to sand this though. Oh, it does. It fits perfectly. Kundalini worldwide for the win. Oh, that's perfect. Look at that. Look at that. That's a nice little thing. Alright. So, what is this? This is a candlestick that I got at Goodwill. It is very thin glass, and you'll notice it's a very specific shape. And if you go to Amazon and you look up condensers, you'll find a bunch of different kinds. The one that's traditionally used for Soxhlets has the spiral in it, but you'll find ones that kind of look like worms or like a bowel, like little beady beads. And so this fits the bill, right? So it's got the wide and the small and the wide and the small. And for me, it was perfect because I was like, shit, I can wrap the aquarium tubing right in these little nodes here and then create its own condenser this way down. So it's just so effective. And the final dinger for me is that it's hollow on one end, and one end only, right? So this end where you put the candle, not hollow. Bottom up to the top, hollow. Fucking amazing, right? So tonight we're going to see, will it Soxhlet? This is my favorite thing, is figuring out like what I can Lego piece together in poverty to make chemistry equipment. It is actually very fun. Like I got a chemistry set for children at Goodwill for $5, and I opened it. And I almost like shit a brick in the back. I was like, ah, because it had like glass stirrers, pipettes. It had graduated cylinders. It had test tubes. Like it has my test tubes, and I accidentally threw away the stoppers. So I have four test tube stoppers, but I have tons of test tubes. But it had the test tubes. It has a spectrochromatography paper. It has litmus paper and pH balanced shit. It's got everything. It had magnifying glasses, and I'm trying to think what else it was really like intense about it. Magnets. It just had a lot of like different phytochemistry testing properties, like various papers, and I think it had methyl. I don't know. It had a bunch, and I was just like, oh my god. So yeah, that's the kind of shit you can find at Goodwill. If you just Go to a couple. Like I don't know. Maybe Mr. Cunnilingus Worldwide manifests these for me. I'm pretty sure it might. But that's what you can do with a budget under $10. Like you don't need a fucking whole thing to get any of this done, right? And you can do this with cannabis. This is most commonly applied to essential oils, right? The stuff that you buy in the little bottles, and to cannabis distillate like sugar wax and shatterbean. You know? So yeah, those are two main applications you usually hear it for. You can use this to pull different types of alkaloids, and I want to say this with caution, right? When I'm talking alkaloids, I'm talking psychoactive stuff and things that are used as analgesics, things that are used in a hallucinogenic fashion. A lot of the medical properties that are effective for affecting the neural pathways on things. You can do a lot of alkaloid extractions here, and this is dangerous. Alkaloid extractions can be dangerous. So just do your research, know what you're doing. Make sure that you test a very, very little bit of it and do a topical first before you make something that you're going to ingest. Highly recommend that because if you break out in a rash, you're not going to die, if you eat it. So do a topical first, and then move on to a supplement and do a lower potency extraction first, and then move into the super beefy, crazy shit. So let's give you some examples of what I pulled through my Soxhlet. So you guys might be familiar in the vaping world with nicotine salts and nicotine in general. So you can pull nicotine essential oils, right? Or nicotine essentially itself is an alkaloid. So you would pull it. This would be a higher concentration than if you would just smoke the plants. Like the distillate for cannabis is the higher concentration because it pulls out like the trichomes and the psychoactive chemicals and reconstitutes them into a goo. And this I did through coffee filters again because it's not done through like a hydrocarbon solvent or anything crazy. It's not going to evaporate into crystals or do goo. I suspend it in water. You can suspend it in. It depends on what you're trying to do. So if you want to take, like I do full spectrum extractions. So you like this would be like low temp, high temp through your Soxhlet. Like you can do extended periods. I add salt. You can use benzoic acid to make nicotine salts too. So I've also made nicotine salts. This is what they look like in the same fashion. Right, you just have to make sure you're doing what solvents you want to know. Not solvent. Yeah, technically it's the solvent, right? But what you're pulling is what's more important, because you have hydrophilic and hydrophobic compounds. So that's why when we're talking different solvent extraction types, and you think of cannabis, you make butter with cannabis, and you use butane and polar solvents. Excuse me. For certain things like terpenes and polyphenols, and then you use like a fat-based. Technically, they would be considered non-polens. My brain's kind of taking a shit for a second. Those might be reversed. I don't think they are, because water is the polar solvent, alcohol's a polar solvent, vinegar's a polar solvent. You might want to vibe with the pH stuff. You can always go on ChatGPT and ask for what specific chemicals or what are in specific plants that you're trying to pull and like what temperatures you can pull them at. So it's a learning process. Again, that's why you want to keep a diary too, or like a journal, if that sounds more scientific or whatever. You want to keep an observation guide of what you're doing and how it works and how effective it is and potent it is. Like we were making skin cream last night because before I was just making oil pulls and I was making tinctures with creosote and I wanted to see how effective it was. Well, now I got to make a more concentrated version and then add it to a solve recipe. So this just isn't coconut oil. This has a jojoba. It's got a little bit of almond oil in it too. So it's in the fridge, it's going to stay hard. But when it gets out, it's kind of more like a cream. Right? So it's solvy. It's not hard like coconut oil, but it's not, that would be more like lip balm or like pain salves or whatever. But yeah, creosote. Creosote sunscreen. So let's set this up. Let's do a test run and go to town, redneck style. This is engineering. I don't know why they call it redneck. They should just say poor engineers. That's all it is. Engineering is, usually drawn out of necessity. So people that can figure it out. All right, I'm gonna get me some refreshments. Enjoy the fog machine. Might even get a song out. Mm. Oh yeah, I'm just dehydrated. I'm telling you, it's hot out here for a thing. All right, so I have weird little thing. I have my container that I thought would work the best as I was trying this out because I have a bunch of little like glass containers that I use to store various things. It's also nice just to have like random glass pieces around. That's another thing that I'll say is because you can just kind of fit different things once you can get the hang of it. But I'm looking for my test tube. Where can I put my... I do have to get another... You have another test tube? My apartment is too small. My dream house is a Victorian style, Queen Anne. I'm going to buy one and die in it. Build a garden. That's what I want to do. Have all my weird Victorian style kitschy thing. I'm going to build my own telescope and put stained glass in the walls. That's what I want. But I can't live in Indiana where they're affordable, so I might just build one here. I don't know. Ew. Okay. I have my test tube. I have my chopstick. What the chopstick's going to do is it's actually just going to hold this here so I don't even have to tape it. I'm just fucking lazy. And not only that, but it'll act as like a little path for things to drip. But this just kind of fit together. So this is going to act like our thimble. This is going to be our base where our solvent is. And I do multiple extractions at a time. Most of the times I don't like to waste shit. So you can put plant matter in the bottom here with your solvent if you are using one that's consumable, right? I mean, you could technically do... We're not going to get into that. Well, that'll be like Isaac Newton level. We'll get there eventually. But yeah, you can do multiple extractions that way. So let's do... What do I want to do? What do I want to do? What have I done? I already did tobacco. Oh, let's do desert. What the hell was that? I don't want to know what that was. My house is haunted, by the way. Just in case you guys... I'm with the spirits now and they hang out with me, apparently. Those are just like knocking shit off, I think. What is that with ghosts? They just like knocking shit. Like, do you want to get my attention? You could just like write me a nice letter. Perhaps a post-it note with a smiley face. You know, if you're angry about something, the fucking, I don't know. Go talk about your dad issues on an invisible couch through a dead spirit. I don't know how it works. Anyway, so we're gonna do desert willow. This is Chilopsis linnaeus. It is a powerful antifungal plant in the desert. It's also good for your kidneys. So I need to make an extract for it to put into some gummies or tea or whatever. So we're gonna do desert Chilopsis, desert willow, and I have the leaves, the barks, and I have the flowers. The flowers, I would say for tea. And like bath products, you know, they're delicate. They have a lot of like the flavor compounds, obviously, of whatever plant you're using. And then, leaves are going to go in tinctures and tonics and oil extracts. It's the plant material that you would normally do a lot of your, vinegars. You would do like a water, and I just got lost there. I'm telling you, I need to drink more water. I need to do something with my life. Anyway, so this is the workhorse is the leaves and the plant matter and the stems and stuff. And the roots, depending on the plant too, I would also do a profile on what is most phytochemically active, right? So you would look up, let's say you have for desert willow specifically for Chilopsis, I would be like, what are the compounds that have been studied? What effects does it have on the body? What are the historical botanical uses of it? And then, extraction processes and what parts of the plant are the most active, right? So like tobacco, the roots on that are like shit. So I put it in the oil extraction, right? I feel so attacked. I just saw a TikTok from one of my favorite creators, and it was a whole skit about people that say right after every sentence. I was like, that's just rude. This is rude. Anyway, right? So, get the plant, and then you have the bark. And the bark is for teas. The bark is really for any kind of extraction. It's just kind of a pain in the ass. And when we're talking about bark extractions, the outer bark is not going to be the stuff that you want. So when we're talking about sustainably harvesting, You're going to peel back the bark. You only do a little bit. And use multiple plants, but there's not a lot in an area. If it looks sick, leave it the fuck alone, right? It doesn't need you picking at it. But you're just going to pull back the outer bark a little bit, and then you're going to go for a little bit of the lighter inner bark, because the outer bark obviously has weathering to it, and it's been exposed to the elements. So you want the kind of good pulpy bit. Like, you can think about the whiter, bitter part of the rind in an orange. That's what we're looking for. So when we're doing our extractions, we want it to be as fine as possible. So normally I would use a coffee grinder. You can use a food processor. I also have this little like leaf maceration thing that I use when I'm cutting my tobacco or doing it's like long strip cutting. Again, I got this at a thrift store in the butthole of like 75th Avenue in Indian School, and it was like $2, but it's perfect. It works for exactly what I need. So you want it to be pretty great. So for bark, you would do it in the coffee. For leaves, you can make it in paste, or you can grind it up really fine. Do what you want. So let's start. What are we gonna do? We'll do a triple layer extraction, and I also need a funnel. That's one thing I'm always fucking losing is my funnels. And I need to do what I do with my sunglasses, and I buy just a million pairs so that I never ever lose them. And just do that with funnels. Because funnels are essential. There you are. You slippery, stinky little thing, you. Okay. So, bottom's going to be water. It's going to be the closest to the heat source. We're going to go low and slow. I always recommend low and slow, right? Unless you're doing a specific thing. And you can, again, experiment. Because you destroy a lot of the compounds that we're doing. When you do it that way, high temp isn't good for preserving, like things that are antioxidants or enzyme impacting. Because enzymes like to denature at a certain temperature, just like protein does. Because that's part of it. I would never ever forget the SNL skit for David S. Pumpkins. I'm telling you, my brain is usually just like one big long reference to pop culture from the 2000s. Like if Family Guy had my own version. It's just joking. Like I learned to be funny, no shit, from I Love the 90s. I remember I was in high school and I felt so badass because I could finally drop jokes. And somebody called me out of it. A friend of mine called me out. He's like, "Did you watch a lot of I Love?" That was from I Love the 90s. I was like, "How the fuck do you know about that? Just shut your fucking mouth. You don't tell a soul you hear. I'm finally funny. I'm king of the mountain right now." But I Love the 90s. Oh, man. I did so much weird stuff in high school. I was like, this is why I was bullied. It's still a shitty thing, but I'm like, yeah, I kind of get it. I kind of get it. Alright, so we got our leaves. That's another good reason to grind them, too, is getting them out. If you don't, I'm just lazy. It's just a fucking bitch. But again, I just do things the hard way. Because that's how we learn, apparently. It's just doing things the hard way. Alright, so we got our leaves in the bottom. We're going to get a little bit of distilled and or purified water. You always want to make sure you have all the stuff taken out of it because the hard components can fuck everything up. If you guys have ever seen the film on your cookware after you wash it, I have a really bad problem with that here in Phoenix because our water is insanely hard. Because it's in desert. So we got our leaves in the bottom. Now we are going to take our test tube. Where did I put the test tube? Oh, you didn't do this to me again, did you? Ha ha! Where is my super suit? Okay. This is going to be our thimble sample. Alright, and this is going to be where your delicate stuff goes. I'm going to do flowers because, fuck it, why not? This is, again, part of the experimenting process. You can start with already proven methods and replicate things that people have already done. Just to start, like you would with anything else, right? Science experiments at home. Building baking soda and vinegar volcanoes. But yeah, you feel free to experiment. It's kind of like an art. So chemistry is a lot like baking, right? So it requires precise things. And, when you're figuring things out, it doesn't require the same precise level of detail because it's an experiment, right? You just want to make sure you're recording what you're doing and what the results are. So if it's successful, you can go back and replicate it. But yeah, this part's a lot like cooking. Like you just kind of got a feel for it. Where are the flowers? Where are my flowers? I thought I had a whole bushel, and then you disappeared to the bottom of the jar. What are you doing? There we go. Nice dry flowers. And again, you normally for flowers and stuff and leaves, if you don't use them fresh, you want to hang them upside down in a place that has good ventilation and that is, a relatively cool area away from sunlight. The sunlight destroys chemical compounds. Like it destroys all organic tissue. Uh, so we're gonna put a little bit more water into this because we want our solvent to be in here as well. So when it comes back down, I'll show you in a second. We have this, and we're just gonna suspend that in a nice little distilled water solution. And I use my coffee filters. I was gonna use a coffee filter for this because it's a really good way to kind of collect plant chemicals onto something that's feasible and like neutral. That you can then also test in like assays to see if they're antiviral or if they have any kind of active compounds and alkaloids. So it's just gonna go back down in the thimble. Like what you could do too is like if I could find my coffee filters, stick this in the top. I would have put a coffee filter like probably at the very bottom here with a little thing sticking out, just to make it easy to grab. Or you could put it technically on the bottom here, just so it soaks and takes that in that sample size. Because we still have the thimble. And then again, that could have just been like an added extraction. Like normally when you buy a thimble for chemistry, it's like a one-time use little thing that soaks up the extra, and then you gotta take the solvent out of it and whatever. So yeah, I put my test tube in. It's just tall enough that it goes right to the top here. It's gorgeous. I love it when it's like I'm the kind of person when I go and I pull like a number of something out of a deck of cards, or it's like like go pick up 15 jelly beans. I pick up exactly 15 jelly beans. Like I need 15 sheets of paper for a thing. Like I pick up exactly 15 sheets of paper. So yeah, it all fits. It's just all comes together. So we're gonna put the narrow side down of the chopstick into the test tube. The thick side's gonna be on top, right? Because that just makes sense. Or even with the thicker part where the thing distills, tinier part to drop it down. Plus, it keeps it more stable. And essentially, if I'm not like fucking around too much, it just stays there. It just stays there. So you can leave it on very low simmer, and it'll just chill like this. And this is your Soxhlet, essentially, right? So let me give you an up close and personal view of my dollar store Soxhlet, right? So you got your test tube, you got your bottom solvent. I put plant matter in it. I got my flowers in my test tube. And then I got my condenser, which is a glass candlestick I found with a hollow bottom. And it's all being held together by a chopstick. Right? You want to make sure, again, your chopsticks, wood can hold contamination. So when you use plastic ones or glass ones, even better. Use something sterile. And make sure you wash it and take care of it. And that you put all of this stuff through a sterilization cycle too. I don't think I've ever really touched on hygiene in this. It is extremely important that you guys sterilize all of your equipment because it prevents contamination, especially if you want to store this stuff long term and you're not using like a synthetic solvent or anything that's shelf stable. You don't want to fuck yourself up. So, be clean. Clean your workspace. Clean your tools. Be good, clean little people. Little goo babies. My goo babies. All right, so we got this. This is my double boiler. You can see it's a little hot. Try to balance it. See again, hard way. I could just get a glove that I have. It's right there, but I'm not going to do that. So we're going to take this. Oh, that fits perfectly too. I usually do this on my stove, but I have a tendency to let it go, forget, and then all of the water boils out of it, and then I end up cracking the glass on the bottom. Yeah, that's how I destroy my stuff. So we can just, for now, I'm just going to do that there. All right. Now, how are we going to get that to condense? This is where this comes in. We're going to think about this like a gas pump. If you guys are familiar with that, it's where you suck out at one end, comes out from the tank. It's a gravity thing. So we're going to start at the bottom, plop that sucker in here. And theoretically, and this has worked for me in the past, is the water will get hot, right? And the fluctuation between the cold and the hot temperature flowing, you think like our wear patterns, will cause the water to move, right? As an endless enclosed cycle. So, take this. Should have probably done this before. Yeah, why don't I just do that? It's keeping me. I'm learning. The Kundalini is actually really making me focus on this problem. It's like, you need to slow down. You could do so much cooler stuff and not break all your stuff and, just not be tired. I don't know. I'm not even that tired. I just do a lot. Apparently it's not vibing. I need to slow down. Wrap. And we can do this loosely. Apparently as I'm doing this tighter, it's kind of getting flat. You just want to watch, just like a hose, that it doesn't have any kinks in it. Which this does, because I got a little too excited about the looping. There you go. Yeah, this is that shitty aquarium too. This one get you in there nice and gentle, like tree. There you go. This is emotional damage. Come back down. What gave me this idea too that I thought was really funny is if you've ever seen those bongs that have the refrigerated attachment that look just like this from the Soxhlet condensing point where it's cold on the outside. I'm like, that's literally what this is. It's too bad. I haven't really found a way to repurpose a lot of my glass that I have in a chemistry way, even though that's completely what it's designed off of, Alright, so we got one long tube, one tiny tube. I'm going to keep this away from the heat. It is, again, not super heat proof. You can buy super heat proof type from chemistry distributors if this is an investment that you want to make. But yeah, just come on in. We're gonna stick it down, and then we're gonna start the pumping. Actually, I swallowed that. Whoa. See, don't be like me. Because I think the last extraction I used this for was nicotine salts, which is great. They'll just give me a real big high. But yeah, you can actually see a bubble. Okay, cool. Let me show you guys up close. There's a bubble. You can see it. All right. You can see it from the back. This little bubble and traveling around. See it? That's how you know you got movement to keep this cold. Look at it. It's beautiful. Very trippy. All right, so this is after a couple minutes, and if you're Soxhlet, it's Soxhletting correctly. You should start to see, you see that fun little steamy fog on the inside of the test tube? Right, that's what we're looking for. That's basically the stuff coming back down from the top, and I put like a little ice cube on top too. I'm like, that's a good idea. But it comes back down through this little thing, which you're starting to see, right? The steamy steam. And then it goes down, and it just goes right back into the test tube where our flowers are. So that's essentially the basics of a Soxhlet, and that's how it works. And how to set it up. So again, if you like my content, feel free to tip me existence money. I appreciate it. And if you have any comments, questions, feel free to post them below. And because we're on lesson 2, I will give you one last challenge. Try something, make it from what you've watched, and come show it to me. I want to see your shinies. Give me your goo baby shinies, and have a good one.